Yep. I'm sorry to be the one to tell you that Helen Keller dabbled in eugenics. Now, she felt bad about it later in life, but for a period of time, she was very much a part of the American eugenics scene. You see, Helen Keller was best friends with this guy, Alexander Graham Bell, who you probably know as the inventor of the telephone and the founder of AT&T. What you might not know about Mr. Bell is that he had an obsession and a fetish for the deaf community that has gone widely unreported and was deeply problematic. He had this idea that deaf people could like breed out deafness by assimilating to hearing culture and marrying and breeding with hearing people. Bell worked with the politicians at the time to try and make it illegal for deaf people to marry each other. He also advocated for this thing called oralism that would teach deaf folks how to read lips or speak instead of use sign language. He described deaf culture as a calamity and even went on to marry one of his deaf students to, like, save her. And he had a really strong influence on Helen Keller. In 1915, she wrote a public letter advocating for doctors to make the choice if an infant born with severe disabilities should be saved or should be allowed to die as a form of mercy. In the letter, she said that the possibility to achieve happiness, intelligence, and power are what give life its sanctity, and then said those possibilities are absent from paralyzed, misshapen, unthinking creatures. Helen Keller was also super close with Margaret Sanger, who advocated for birth control and eugenics and a bunch of other, like, pseudoscience nut jobs of the early 20th century. But then Helen Keller got a new neighbor and a new best friend, this lady here, Nancy Hamilton, who described herself as a chatty, beer drinking bachelor girl. Nancy was a lesbian who called herself the female Noel Coward. She also dated Katharine Hepburn and is responsible for making Helen Keller regret her feelings about eugenics. And she might have even helped Helen Keller get laid. That's right. Helen Keller's mother would not let her date. She was super ableist and thought it was like, I don't know, she infantilized Helen Keller for like well into her adult life. But once you become neighbors with the lesbians in the theater circuit, you meet some socialists. And Helen Keller met the socialist Peter Fagan, who became her live in secretary and future fiance. So that's the story on Helen Keller. She went through a little eugenicist period as a young adult who was very influenced by some pseudoscience freaks of the day. And then as she grew up and made her own decisions and made her own friends, she really came around and became a much better person and pretty well denounced her feelings about eugenics. Moral of the story? History is complicated, and most of the stuff they teach you in school is very, very sanitized versions of the truth. And also, get yourself a lesbian friend. They're a great weather vane to point you in the direction of being a better person.